It is not only that Kautilya talks about many concepts that we recognize as sound principles of economics today, but also that he composed his treatise almost 2,000 years before Adam Smith wrote The Wealth of Nations in 1770s. Being a student of social sciences in general and economics in particular, this subject is especially close to me. Otherwise, trust me, even I need incentives to come to my own seminars. But this is especially close to me, so I'm here. I therefore thank Dr. Balbir Sihar, for accepting the invitation to present his thoughts and analysis on the subject at UMass Dartmouth Center for Indic Studies Spring 2017 Seminar Series. As the Chinese proverb says, we live in interesting times. It seems like a wave of divisive politics and social tendencies is sweeping the globe, and as social scientists and as academicians from a variety of disciplines, I think it's our special responsibility towards addressing these trends and kind of putting a salve on the hurt that it is causing. I think being able to identify and acknowledge the contribution of non-Western ancient civilizations to human progress and knowledge could go a long way in doing that. It emphasizes the unity in the human endeavor across time and space of addressing and solving basic social and economic problems. It is also today's event is also especially important as the broad branch of science that I work in, social sciences. They have had their fair share of divisiveness for a very long time. The Eurocentric development of social scientific thinking has often put non-European scholars of non-European history and knowledge in a defensive position. And probably it's single-handedly responsible for reading a totally opposite Asia-centric view of history and knowledge development. But I think any kind of dogma is kind of backfires in terms of scientific progress, and in that regards, I find Dr. Singh's work very interesting. His work on Kautilya's role as an economic thinker and philosopher is particularly important point from that point of view and of immediate relevance. It forces us to look beyond the standard narrow Eurocentric narrative of history of economic thought and opens up our minds to fresh perspectives. As academicians, I think we should be doing more of that, and that too without falling prey to any kind of dogma. In fact, that is our responsibility. It is credible that Dr. Sihar, he's a PhD from one of the topmost graduate programs in the US, or actually in the world, at MIT. He left his tenured job in UMass Lowell to pursue his passion of research on Kautilya and his treatise on political economy. He has published several scholarly articles and has an extremely well-written book-length treatment on the subject, which Jerry mentioned is available here. Without taking any more of your time in my ramblings, I once again welcome you, Dr. Sihar, and all of you on behalf of Center for Indic Studies, and I request you to come to the dais.
Thank you so much for your kind words and also inviting me. Let me first give a brief history how I got into it. Because this was not my subject. Professor Samuelson used to teach history of economic thought, and I took his course. And then also I taught for a couple of years. But still I was not interested in this kind of ideas. I was on my sabbatical in 1997, and I found 2 copies of Kautilya's Arthashastra on my shelf. And one my father-in-law gave me, and the other one, I don't know how I got there. This is the Wealth of Nations. And this is a translation. You can imagine how many times I have read it. So this my father-in-law gave me. So I went to Professor Samuelson's office. He was my professor at MIT. And handed over, and by chance it was 6 o'clock and the secretary had gone. So he was sitting all alone and there was nobody in the department, whole department, he was the only one. And he had retired many years ago. And still working very hard. So I went up to him and presented a copy, and he glanced over it and asked a question. That his standard was, if a person knows opportunity cost, like you are here, what else you could have done with your time? That's opportunity cost. He asked that does it have opportunity cost? I had not read it, anything. I couldn't believe that it might have those kind of concepts. I was really embarrassed. And I could hardly reach home that I started reading it. And then I read second time, and there are a lot of modern concepts in the book. So I wrote a paper. Nobody will publish it. For 2 years, I tried so many journals, nobody was interested. And I gave up the whole idea. But in 2000, suddenly the Buddha movement, enlightenment. I used to teach international trade, Ricardo and Adam Smith and everything else, and they had no clue about equations or graphs or anything else. Well, gee, I can do that to this book too. Suddenly that thing came to my mind, and I was in business. In 1 year, I wrote a whole book. Not this one yet. And Professor Bhagwati was my supervisor. He's at Columbia now. And he wrote a nice letter to Oxford University Press. And that's published it, and they are very excited to publish it. And then the referee sent some comments, interesting comments, because he didn't like the title. So he got to change the title. Okay. Second thing he said that you can say that Kautilya was great, but you have to say Adam Smith was greater. Listen, I can't tell a lie. Okay, the way they are, that's what I'm going to present. So Oxford University, finally I said, I'm not interested in getting it published, giving a wrong thing. And then my wife, she's a physician. She's very smart. Then she suggested that you take out this book into different articles. Take a couple of concepts and write an article. So I wrote a lot of papers. A couple of concepts, write a paper. Take a couple of concepts, write a paper. And then she said, now is the time to put them together. So that's how this book really came into existence. It's a long story. There are a lot of other detours, but we'll talk some other day. Now, Kautilya, he looked at the whole economy. The Arthashastra has, let me get started. So this will be the outline that why Adam Smith was declared the founder of economics. We don't say anymore father of economics. Women don't like that word. So we say founder. And then Kautilya, he's popularly known as Chanakya. His father's name was Chanak. So he's known as more popularly in India, Chanak. So why Kautilya should be the founder of economics? Because he surpassed in every category of what Smith was declared to be the founder of economics. And then I'll emphasize more on this third part, that what's the relevance of Kautilya's ideas to our economy today. very relevant right now, what is happening in Washington. I will connect that example. So the third part is a lot deeper. Adam Smith could have never even think about those kind of things. But Kautilya, he was a visionary, and also he wanted to put his vision into action. So very action-oriented person. Like if something, what's the point of having a vision if you can't implement it? So always, what we know call nowadays backward induction. That we want to go to the Mars. It's better to have a station at the moon. And then to go to the moon, have the International Space Station, and go to the International Space Station to start from Earth. So this is called backward induction. Starting from your target and then slowly moving back where you are right now. So this is what with every problem, he starts with this is what he wants and how to achieve that. So he has many steps going backward. So why I got interested in that? Sure, was to get Kautilya in credit his due, that he should be acknowledged as the founder of economics. He wrote the book more than 2,000 years earlier, actually 4th century BC. Even earlier than that, some people now are suggesting, because he uses some of the things with Harappa culture, which was 2600 BC. The measurements which Harappa culture used 2600 BC, he's using them. And a lot of other details he's providing which are suggesting that he was really earlier than 4th century BC. But I'm not fighting on that. My goal was simple, that he wrote the Arthashastra 1 hour before the Wealth of Nations. That's all I was interested in. Not in the historical aspect at all. Because most of the discussion so far, until I took up this issue, was when did he write it, was it by one person, and so on. They just wasted a lot of time on those kind of discussions, and nothing tangible was done. And also, political science people were more interested in that. Nobody really even cared to see what economics contains. And the second part is relevant to today's economy. That's amazing that the insights he had, which are relevant, more relevant actually today than they were in his own time. Well, this is what Kautilya was concerned about, that poverty is living death. So how to get out of that? That was basically his starting point, that it's better to die than live in poverty. And he went on and on that, emphasizing that somehow we've got to find a way out of getting out of poverty. And then, see the logic of his whole analysis, that no nation could prosper under a foreign rule. Find any example of this all over the world. If a country is slave, it can never prosper. So he started with that. So you have to have independence if you really want prosperity. And then to maintain independence, you have to have resources. And how can a poor nation have resources? So you have to have high income, prosperity. Only then you can have a good, strong defense. So ultimately he concluded that a nation, either it has both prosperity and national security or none of them. So he put a lot of emphasis on those two parts that they are so interconnected. Now, Adam Smith did not talk anything on national security. He borrowed a couple of lines from Machiavelli that a country should have standing army, it should not depend on missionaries and so on. But other than that, absolutely no contribution of national security. But my book has 3 chapters on national security, which is a summary of what Kautilya was trying to do. 3 chapters on that. Here's the meaning of the word he uses that. Gita also uses that word. In the case of Gita, Lord Krishna should provide the preservation and acquisition of the individual who is a devotee to the Krishna, but Kautilya said the king should provide that. He was not into any kind of superstition or he was not a religious person, but very ethical. He was secular and ethical, but not religious at all. Whenever any emergency arrived, what did he do? That the temples have a lot of money. First appropriate that and fight the war. So he was really not religious at all, but highly, highly ethical. So these are two different things. He was called Acharya, and a lot of people know that he was a kingmaker, but that's not my topic. My topic was that he was the maker of his age. How to bring prosperity, how to make sure that the country always has independence. Those were his goals. A secular, safe, secure, prosperous nation. That's where my focus was, and that's what was his focus. So how Adam Smith was declared as the father of economics? Schumpeter, he was a great historian, and he gave his comment that at that time there was no one else. There was Ricardo. He wrote a book in 1817, but it was a little harder for a lot of people. So they declared instead Adam Smith as the founder of economics. But nobody would have really acknowledged that in his time. So it was just given to him arbitrarily. Well, later on, some people have said that why he should be, they try to justify why he should be the founder of economics. Now, he has written a thick book, and he says that he separated, he made economics or political economy autonomous, free from religion and also from philosophy. So that is his criterion to declare Adam Smith as the founder of economics. Okay. Now Kautilya, he not only made a distinction that it should be separate from religion and philosophy, but also from political science. So he declared economics totally different, an independent subject, or autonomous subject, away from philosophy, away